Today on CityCast Pittsburgh. Beyond the tree line in Squirrel Hill South, where Forward Avenue meets Commercial right beside 9 Mile Run, there's this rundown little gray building with big, blocky green letters. The Irish Center of Pittsburgh has been empty for a long time. It's got a water runoff problem, and there's a developer who wants to do something with it. But as Trib reporter Ryan Dito knows all too well, not everyone is in favor of that plan. It's Wednesday, August 2nd. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. So this Irish Center thing, why are people on the internet so mad about this?
Well, it's a development project in the city of Pittsburgh.
Right there.
That's probably enough. People are mad on the internet. People are mad in real life. People are probably more mad in real life than they are on the internet in terms of this development.
It's a big unit, or at least they want it to be. It's a lot of spaces, a lot of homes. Tell me a little bit about the specifics.
Yeah, they're proposing 162 units. These are going to be condominium units, so they're going to be for sale. A lot of them are going to be 2 bedrooms, so that's another kind of wrinkle to this, is that this is like a little bit more of a family-friendly development. A lot of new big housing developments in Pittsburgh are mostly, 1 bedrooms, and kind of for young professionals who are kind of moving to the city. This one is a little bit more expansive than that. It's going to be 8 stories. That's what they're proposing. And it's going to kind of take over the entire former Irish Center site, which was a community center for a long time.
But there's nothing there except for that old building now, right, on the hillside. I drive by it all the time, but I've never had reason to pay attention to, what may or may not still be in use. Yeah,
there's an old building. There's an old pool. There's just a bunch of old community center stuff, a big parking lot. And it's just, it's really dilapidated. It's totally out of use. I think it's been completely out of use for a few years now. And then for the last decade or so, the only time it ever got use was for raves and stuff like that, legitimately. So
now I'm sad I never went to one of those. What I think I understand part of this, at least thanks to your reporting, the problem is the zoning. What is the space zoned for now, and what do developers want to use it for?
Yeah, so it's currently zoned under the P Parks label, which only allows for a very limited kind of development. It can be golf courses. It can be community center.
Because this hillside abuts Frick Park. You can look right down to it.
Yeah, right next to 9 Mile Run Trail and Frick Park are the very, very south end of the park. And it runs along Forward and Commercial Street that kind of cuts through. I know a lot of people from Swiss Elm Park use that cut through to kind of,
I used to use it almost every day.
Yeah, a lot of people use it. And again, very limited kind of use that you can have there. Community centers, golf courses, tennis courts, a few single-family homes sometimes. But
we're not doing any of that right now, right?
No. So they want to use that site for a much more high-use kind of site. And I think what a lot of people don't understand, because it's one of their first development kind of story forays, is this Irish Center, is that almost every developer in the city of Pittsburgh, when they propose something that's kind of ambitious, they seek a zoning variance. We haven't updated our zoning code in forever. And so if you want to do something sort of ambitious, sort of big, you have to seek a zoning variance. Basically, every single development of any note in the city seeks a zoning variance.
So the automatic stance is, no, you can't do this. And a variance would allow them maybe to be able to seek out whatever it is they want to do for any project.
Yes, exactly. Right now under the current zoning, if the development proposal fit under the current zoning, you wouldn't really even have to go to the city for much. You'd have to go for a planning commission, meeting. And if it's in the zoning, then, a lot of times the, planning commission will be really amenable to that. But under a zoning variance, it's just another, I call it 1,000 veto points. And that's how basically development works in America, in any major city in America, in any small city in America. There's so many veto points that a municipality can have, that a community can have, to kind of say, hey, we don't want this development. It's very popular to not want a development.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the status quo basically for every development. And so it's funny to see it play out with this Irish Center drama. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Like, this is every development story. Most people are just following it because it's literally in their backyard. It's like right next to where they live.
Yeah, I've heard that thrown around so much about this development, that this is like a NIMBY thing, not in my backyard.
Oh, this is definitely the biggest NIMBY opposition I've seen in my 8 years working in Pittsburgh. Like they are virulent in their opposition. And to be honest, their opposition doesn't make much sense except that they just don't want it. and so if you just don't want it, then you're just not in my backyard, basically. Like, yes, we need more housing, but not here, somewhere else, And it's really funny because no one's ever really brought up that, like, a lot of times you hear a lot of people go, oh, we'll accept this if there's like affordable housing attached. This one doesn't have affordable housing attached. It's not in any of the inclusionary zoning districts, which kind of require that. And I don't really think it needs it, but but I'm kind of surprised that hasn't joined the opposition.
Hey Pittsburgh, it's Megan. If you're craving a delicious scoop on a hot summer day, get yourself up to Bakery Square. It's the new local home for Jenny's Ice Cream in Pittsburgh. I know, it's sort of sacrilegious here to love an Ohio brand this much, but y'all, I've been a Jenny's stan for years. Their flavors are so creative. The brown butter almond brittle, the brambleberry crisp, the darkish chocolate. They have dairy-free and gluten-free options too, and they'll be dropping new flavors every week now through August 10th. I am so stoked that I can finally get my from-scratch Jenny's Fix right here in Pittsburgh at Target, Whole Foods, even Giant Eagle. Find all their flavors and fun facts at Jenny's, that's JENIS.com. Well, so it seems like this one is seeing more and more pushback, at least out loud, than I've seen in a lot of other places. What are the developers saying? Like, why do they want this zoning variance, and kind of how are they trying to explain their point of view?
Yeah, developers are saying that they want to kind of increase the housing supply in Pittsburgh.
And they're not a local group, right? I think I saw they were out of Canada.
No, they're Craft. They're from Toronto, Canada.
Yeah.
This site has been proposed before for housing. It was proposed like 20 years ago for housing. It never went through. This happens a lot too, where Pittsburgh doesn't have a heavy level of development. So we see a lot of feelers that get put out by random development groups that go, oh, I see potential there. And then it might not come to fruition. So they believe that housing is a good idea, one, because we are at a kind of a supply crunch for new high quality housing in Pittsburgh. There's some studies that say that we have the worst housing quality of any major metro area in the country.
Is that just because it's old?
Yes, because it's old and it has not seen any kind of updates for years. You go out to certain neighborhoods in Pittsburgh, certain boroughs, old boroughs, river towns, those kind of areas. And these houses were built 100 years ago. They haven't seen any upgrades, especially after the steel collapse of the 70s and 80s. You just had people kind of stuck there. Now, Irish Center obviously isn't that. It's not a house. It's just an old center. But, the idea is that that we need an infusion of new high-quality housing. And so that's where the developers
If you build it, they will come.
Right, exactly. And that's true. That's what we've seen across the board. If you look in the Strip District, you build these big, giant, developments. They're filling up very fast. And so that's the developer's mindset is, oh, well, we can do that for Squirrel Hill. We can do this on this site.
But does Squirrel Hill want any of this?
It's really hard to say. There are definitely a lot of neighbors that don't want it. That's the kind of consensus we're getting. Now, again, these are also just neighbors that are passionate enough to speak out about it. Now, there's plenty of other people that probably couldn't care, here or there, whether or not it happens. So, but there are a few people that are like, no, it's good. We need to increase the housing supply. Let's do that. But right now, they're overwhelmed by people who are saying it will cause more traffic, it'll cause more congestion, that it will worsen stormwater issues.
Is that true, though? I thought part of this new proposal coming up for a zoning board meeting later this week had to do with exactly that. There are already a bunch of existing environmental issues like that stormwater runoff thing. But I assume this hillside, it hasn't been touched in decades. It can't be to code right now either.
No. Exactly. That's right. And that's what the developers are saying is that, well, right now there's a ton of bad runoff there currently because it hasn't been developed in forever. You get a bunch of gravel that falls into the road all the time, anytime there's a big storm. And like, if they do this, they will also upgrade a lot of the infrastructure around this site. They will improve the stormwater, runoff issues. They have to install groundwater tanks. They're going to install green roofs. They're going to install, landscaping that will capture more, stormwater runoff. They say that will help the flooding issues that kind of happen in that 9 Mile Run area. And so that's a decent argument from the developers, I think.
But that hasn't persuaded all the neighbors, at least not the loudest ones.
That has not swayed anybody. I think the one of the community groups, Squirrel Hill Urban Coalition, met yesterday, and they were going to reconsider a vote they had already taken against the development. They did reconsider that vote. It did not change the outcome of the vote. I think they got one more vote or something like that for it.
Interesting.
But
it
still failed. So that will not be recommended by them to the zoning board.
Which is meeting on Thursday.
Yes, and it's not looking good. This is just my opinion as a reporter. I think if you have all that, I don't see it really happening. It was a pretty good push by the developers and some pro housing groups, but if I'm the developers, I'm not feeling optimistic.
Yeah. Well, so what are the next steps? Either way it goes.
Yeah. Well, those zoning board meetings just go pretty long, so I expect a lot of community members probably to come out and to say why they're against it. So you're going to hear the same arguments from them, and I think especially in a place like Squirrel Hill, where it's the nicest neighborhood in the city. It's the nicest neighborhood in the country, maybe. Like it's a wonderful neighborhood. Like it's got everything you need. It's walkable. It's all that stuff, and so there's probably some fear that any kind of change would change that kind of outcome. So I think that's what happens.
Do you think there's also maybe a little bit, of a hangover from the Forward Avenue development? Like the buildings that have been going up there forever, the intersection that's been interrupted forever, it feels like. Just driving through like what is effectively the front door for many people of Squirrel Hill is like kind of a nightmare and has been for like 6-7 years.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, yes, again, because any kind of development comes with construction, comes with change, basically change to the status quo. So absolutely, there's definitely anxieties that will build up around that. That experience will be like, that really caused a lot of problems.
Well, so if people are feeling some fire in their belly about this and they want to get involved, what can they do?
I assume they could probably sign up for the, to speak at the zoning board meeting. They could join one of the many community groups. There's been like 2 community groups that have literally popped up just to oppose, maybe not just to oppose, but they have popped up because to oppose this development. So they could join those community groups, Frick Park Friends. If you feel the opposite, if you want the development, there's pro housing groups, Pro Housing Pittsburgh, I think is one of them, stuff like that. So you could join. I would I would maybe caution against that and maybe not worry about every little development that comes up. But there's definitely a lot of options to get involved.
Brian, thank you so much for following zoning variances so that we don't have to. It's a real public service.
Again, yes, you're welcome. And they happen every single day. I just want to let everybody know that it is not oh my gosh, a zoning variance. It's like, what? It's like literally every day. So
always keeping it real with us. Ryan
Yes.
Dito is a reporter for the Tribune Review. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Here's what else Pittsburgh is talking about. Republicans have chosen a candidate to run for Sarah Inamorato's old 21st House District seat. Her name is Erin Connolly Ottenreith. She's a realtor in Shaler Township, and WESA reports that she was in D.C. at the time of the Capitol riots, according to her Facebook posts at the time, to support President Donald Trump, not to storm the Capitol. Ottenreith will face Democrat Lindsey Powell of Lawrenceville, and because the House is an even party split right now, the outcome will also determine who controls our state house. And NASA awarded a Pittsburgh company a whole bunch of money. Astrobotic is based out of the North Side and run by CMU's own Red Whitaker. They got $35 million to figure out power transmission on the moon. That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. If you're liking the show, please tell someone, leave us a nice rating, a nice review, and make sure you're subscribed to our Hey Pittsburgh newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Talk to you soon. Pittsburghers love to speculate about an old building. I feel like that's part of this, you know?
Pittsburghers don't like change.